start this.
It's up. I'm on your site. It's up and going.
Yeah, I'm going to turn my echo down.
And I'm going to turn my speaker.
Yeah, you turn it down too, and we'll have a little discussion.
Yeah, we can hear over the telephone. And yeah, okay, good. How are you? Looking good. It's on. You're right.
Yeah, I know. You know, I never know when it works and when it doesn't work, and so, you know, sometimes I get discouraged and don't try, and now I really wasn't expecting to do it. But I know I can always count on you, Harold, to make a show.
Well, I think you're ahead of the curve, as they say, in terms of this streaming thing. It's really great. Yeah, it's good. You can see it's clear. You got a little rabbit bunny there.
Right.
You got the thing and everything, and it's coming. So why is it that you don't know? Why is it, you know, you can't be sure that it's streaming going to work or not? Do you have any idea why?
Well, sometimes, you know, when I get on it, it crashes.
Yeah.
And then the last time that you were talking to me, the audio wasn't on, but I created a show anyway that's going to be playing the day after tomorrow.
Oh, good. Okay.
So
yeah,
you know, so you know what I feel like with you? It's like 2 points. We can create a line that goes to infinity. So it's a beginning, right?
Yeah. Well, I think the idea of the streaming, if it becomes what it has, about 1/8 of the 1/6 of the screen, and the streaming is probably in an individual basis is going to be very relevant, and it just comes off an intuitive sense that what's making all of this possible from YouTube on and before and into the future is what's coming out of the research labs, the cyber labs, you know.
Right.
And they're advancing so quickly that there's going to be, they're talking now about making computers that will be terabyte computers.
Right.
So the limits of bandwidth and communication capability that's been characteristic of history, I think, is going to be superseded by an incredible ability for everyone. I was speaking to you on the telephone the other day, and we're going to end up having, you know, everybody streaming from their living room. There'll be 6 billion channels that will be in the multimedia capability of streaming with, you know, and it's only growing because it's going exponentially or beyond exponential now.
Right, right.
So streaming is the future of communication, multimedia communication now, and you're the first person that I know who's gone ahead and, you know, began to do what you have to do to set up that context. And like I said to you, don't be worried about some little glitches that happen. Now this is shakedown cruise time. And think maybe a year out where you're going to be. And I congratulate you and John and the people who put it together enormously, because I think that's the future in a very large sense, you know.
Well, you know, I think the next step is content, because first of all, I think you need group focus. You know, in other words, everybody's got to be singing on the same page. And then after that, you need some, I guess you could say, some risk takers in the group that will try something a little different and kind of risk social disapproval. Because I think when you just only go along with the crowd, I don't think those of us in alternative media can possibly keep up with the glitz and the allure of mainstream, which really seems to have it down as far as advertising and you know, getting the exchange of the money going.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you. It would be we have to have some sort of a context of understanding of things in a very large pattern. But
I think it's not the exchange of the money that's bad or the advertising that's bad. I think somehow we lose control over our power, and we don't even know we have it. So that, you know, right now, as you know, I'm really concerned about the local businesses in Manhattan and how they can compete. Even the word competition, I wonder if there's a better word involved. Maybe, you know, we want to be part of the global community, but in general, globalization seems to not be beneficial to the masses, and it seems to amalgamate power or centralize power in the hands of a very few, which your Christine Ebersole interview, the very precious part came out, where she said that there's this illusion that the rich have all the power and the poor are victims, or that Or that they're all suffering. Even those who seem to be having the power aren't involved in the totality of the game, of the life experience.
Well, yeah, I understand that and so forth, but it seems to me it's just always been that way. There's always a power group that has control over the society. And
yeah, I'm not wording it as well as she worded it. I'll have to go. That's why I'm going to go back and
she's a great person.
Over.
I think she's wonderful, and she's given up on television, so she's going to the YouTube. I thought that was really interesting. That's a jump for the alternative media thing. But I think you're right. The alternative consciousness in the world, if they're going to be really able to deal with it, has to be able to deal with it in a very comprehensive, I don't want to use the word, but ideological or an understanding of what it is that's going on and a theory to address it outside of the one that we get normally reifying or reinstitute or supporting the institutions that have come out of a historical context that has perhaps changed fundamentally, and that seems not to be a context within which things are considered almost anywhere. It's practically all political discussion of the institutions and the conflicts that emerge out of history rather than getting at, as you put it and Alan put it, new realities. There's a new reality dawning, and I think that's a context, and we have to get an explanation of what's going on.
Yeah, that's what you talk about, comprehensive and ideological. I think I talk about risk-taking. What I'm saying is that can we do what isn't done on mainstream, and it hasn't been done for so long? Maybe it was done at the beginning when you had, the first creative people jumping on board, and then they eventually got elbowed out by special interests. Perhaps, I'm only speculating. But I was talking to Christine Ebersole just 2 nights ago, about her experience being on your show and some other things. I think I was editing. I took a risk to call her at 10:30 at night. Yeah. Maybe I had one glass of wine too many to be so bold to call somebody so late.
The first time that's happened in the history of the evolution of consciousness, I would venture.
Well, I was editing and I wanted to get the album. I was so anxious to get the piece up on YouTube. And we had a wonderful conversation. It turns out she's a late night owl, so she was happy. But we were saying that public access really is a very precious medium, and the public access producers themselves don't realize how much latitude they have because we don't have a censor standing over us. So, but on the other hand, what's wonderful about YouTube is you get these comments, and I said to her how much I've learned from my viewers giving me feedback, including one lady I remember saying, "I wish that woman would shut the hell up." And the reason I was talking over a piece that we did at MNN when we had What the Bleep Do We Know? And Joe Friendly was up at the mic, and so was Alan, and I was afraid I would get in trouble for having 2 producers on the same show because we have that rule that unless one is leading the discussion, you can't do that. So I was speaking over from the Express studio, and then I took a look at it, and I could see what that lady was saying. It turns out she was a lady, what the comment was about. But in order to get around it, it was like 7 hours worth of editing. But
wow.
by golly, I did it. I reposted it. I sent an email to her because you can go into other people's sites, and on the subject I said, "I'm the woman you told to shut the hell up," and I said, "Take a look at this reposting, where I redid it," and then she wrote back and said that she wanted to become a subscriber. She said she never would have treated somebody who gave a comment like that to her in the same way. Yeah. So I feel it gives us an opportunity to sort of draw out, in a way, the most painful, but also to, as Christine was talking about, keeping the faith and moving on and expressing yourself, even to say, that really hurts to hear you say that, and I worked so hard to do this. I mean, not to be a victim about it, but I think sometimes people don't understand what goes on in a public access producer's life.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, it's a tough road to hoe, and it's also just it's also just a new kind of thing because they have that place in London, Hyde Park Corner, where anybody can get a tip hat to free speech, and anybody can bring a soapbox, sit up and talk, and they can talk whatever they want, and so people are used to having the pros who are in the business and so forth putting out programming that's received, and they're not used to participating in communication, particularly multimedia. It's been one aspect of an overall organization, world society, based upon a zero-sum notion of scarcity. Actually, that's my thinking.
Oh, hang on, Harold. You're saying the regular multimedia is not used to participation?
Well, I think the citizens are used to receiving communication
from
their so-called leaders, and that's why 99% of the news is all about the political comings and goings and argumentations of our so-called leaders, political or business leaders, about things, and there's very little in there from the people, and there's very little in there from people who would be sort of thinking in a comprehensive context outside of that established paradigm, the institutional structures that surround us and around which we all interconnect, but that reality, that ontology, or that reality has perhaps, that's just a theme or a premise, has been transformed in a fundamental way, and that fundamental transformation, creating another context, that's my theme, has not and is never brought up that there's an alternative reality that already exists in terms of the capability that the technology is bringing to the whole evolution, the whole drama of the evolution of universal consciousness.
But it seems like it's more than just technology. You also have to use it. Because of my conversation with you earlier this morning, asking you to watch the show with me and Nico Haupt, and you said, "Are you going to be streaming?" And I realized I had become discouraged with the site crashing, and I said, "Well, you know what? I should give it a try." And lo and behold, it's streaming right now. Maybe only you might be the only one watching, but it's still a beginning.
Yes, that's right. And think a year out.
Yeah.
And you're doing something new. I remember when we first started doing television, where you could create television, and nobody thought a person should create television outside of a large institutional structure because there was nothing that made it possible. There were lots of glitches and lots of things that didn't happen. And some of the people, like God bless Dee Halleck, who started that Tiger Network, they used to encourage the folks, as it were, to think about doing and not be worrying about how you can't compete with the glitz of the professionals. So, I mean, that's just another thing.
Oh, elaborate on that, Harold.
Beg your pardon?
Can you elaborate on that?
Well, I'm not sure what to elaborate. It's just that the people are, and we're very accustomed to watching. They got 100 channels now on the cable.
Can you hold just
very highly polished and very professional.
Harold, can you hold just one second? Just a second.
Sure.
This is Farther Down the Rabbit Hole.
Hi, are we further down the rabbit hole?
Yeah, are you watching me?
Are you on right now?
Yes, I am. Just pull up RabbitHoleCentral.tv and call back.
RabbitHoleCentral.tv. We're streaming.
You're streaming.
I'll call you right back.
Okay. Harold?
Okay, you got Alan coming on.
Oh, you heard him. Okay, so no, he has to log in first. I don't want to take calls if people haven't been following a little of the conversation. What would you like to tell Alan now that he's going to log on?
Just keep up pace and keep putting out those great programs. That's all. Alan's great, and everything.
But now, regarding new realities, I thought it was really nice how you sort of assimilated that in when you were talking to Christine. I felt there was a little bit of not singing on the same page regarding 9/11 truth, but I really understood both your positions, and I'm hoping to do a show, if I can pull it off, where I can synthesize that, and maybe that's what we can do as public access producers. Help.
Yeah, I have nothing against it. I'm all for it.
I know.
I just don't think it's radical enough.
No. I know what a good risk taker you are.
With an alternative system.
Oh, can you hold just a second?
Yeah, go ahead. I can wait.
Yeah, just keep waiting, please.
Yeah.
Hello? Farther down the rabbit hole?
Mr. Rabbit?
Oh, hang on. Let me tell Harold to say goodbye. Just a second. Harold?
Yeah, okay. Good talking to you. Maybe we can talk a little later in the day.
Okay, it's Alan. I'm gonna recap what we were talking about. Okay.
Okay, and I'll keep tuned.
Thanks a lot, Harold.
And then I'm going to go to that thing tonight
Thanks.
at the Ethical Center.
Oh, at the Ethical. Okay, I'll call you after. Okay. Bye.
We'll talk later. Give my best to Alan.
Okay. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Alan?
Yeah, you sound like your mother. The stream is slowing everything down.
Oh, you mean just you logging on and slowing it down?
No, I don't know about me logging. I know it was like that before, I guess. I don't know.
Oh,
But
well, Harold and I were having a really interesting Harold and I were having a good conversation about how public access can help, bring things together.
Oh, really? About how to bring everything together? Listen to the sound.
No, I don't want to hear the sound, Alan.
What?
I'm creating a show for next week. But I trust you. But let's go into this topic because he did an interview with Christine Ebersole.
Yes.
And I felt that there was a little lack of harmony, particularly with 9/11 Truth. And Harold has his issues with interruptions. But at the same time, I swear to you, Alan, by listening to my interviews with Harold over and over and over, I can begin to understand those points that he's likely to interrupt, and it's because of a vision of a new, you could call it new realities, that goes beyond morality or what you should or you shouldn't do. Like Christine was saying regarding 9/11 Truth, that we knew we had truth on our side and that the universe would bend towards justice. And I think that triggered Harold a little bit, and I think it astonished Christine a little bit because she sort of felt she couldn't quite get her bearings on that, although she was masterful for sure. But I wondered if you had any comments, because
the conversation, though, what were they talking about?
Well, it's really worth listening to. As a matter of fact, I'm going to repeat parts of it for my show because I want to really analyze, because I was watching Joe Friendly with Dean Lauren when Webster was calling in. It was a really hot day, and as you know, I don't have an air conditioner in my apartment. So I think he didn't say it, but I think Webster preferred to do the interview conducted from a more comfortable location. But he was talking about Roosevelt, and Dean Lauren had been doing some research on Roosevelt. And what I found was wonderful was that Joe understood Dean very well and was able to support him. So sometimes we producers can kind of laugh at each other a little bit because we compare ourselves to the mainstream slickness. But in truth, when I watched Joe Friendly and Dean, it was like a beautiful dance. And unfortunately, I had the mic screwed up, so I couldn't get a show out of it. But still, it was exciting to me to watch how the producers are pulling together. And on the internet, we can work together. We won't have the restrictions that we do at MNN. Do you have any comments now that I've said something?
Well, what's the question? What is it that you would like me to comment on?
Well,
I mean,
you can maybe empathize with Harold on 9/11 Truth, because I think maybe that he says it's not radical enough.
It's not radical enough? The fact that the government may have brought down the buildings isn't radical enough? I don't understand that. I don't think anything more radical than that. If that actually is true, which I am not sure if it is true, but if it actually is true and that truth comes out, then I can't think of anything more radical and shocking to a country than its own government attacking its people. I mean, don't you think that's pretty radical?
But what I think Harold is talking about, if I may, I think he means that politics in general is not radical enough. In other words, you can't achieve the change that you want by grumbling about these different institutions. And I don't mean to belittle the magnitude of the situation by using the word grumbling.
Well, that does get me into a topic that I am very much hot about, which is what was called exopolitics.
Oh, yeah, you were just in D.C. Talk about that.
And the truth about the government conspiracy in hiding what they know and have been investigated about alien spacecraft. You know, they have recovered alien spacecraft. Do you know that in 1978 there was a crash in Chihuahua, Mexico, which is right over the border of Texas, and the Mexican army went in to get that, and then they were found dead, supposedly, in the Mexican army, and then the U.S. Army went over the border of Mexico and recovered that craft and took it back into the U.S.
Is there documentation of this, Alan?
Well, yeah, there's documentation. All the ufologists know, but what I think could have happened, and this is highly controversial and radical, is that the U.S. Army could have killed that Mexican army for the spacecraft. I mean, imagine invading another country to collect a spacecraft. Isn't that wild? Isn't that
well, if you want to reverse engineer some of the technology, it could be very valuable.
Of course, but the U.S. Army invading Mexico to recover a spacecraft? I mean, that is just, that's almost insane if it wasn't possibly true.
Right. You know, there's another way to look at it. I don't know if I remember telling you there was a
Can you hold that thought for 1 second?
You're going to be on another line?
1 second.
Okay. While Alan's gone, I'm just going to say the comment that I wanted to talk about was the president of India.
Hello?
Oh, okay, you're back again. Okay. I was going to... I wish we could put her on, too.
Okay, what were you going to say? Sorry.
The guy's name, there was a President Kalam of India, not the present one, but when I was over there, he was the president. And he came from the south of India, and he was some type of scientist. And in Bangalore, they produced a hovercraft. And I'm not sure if he said that he got it from looking at some ancient scriptures, maybe in the palm leaves. But a hovercraft, he said, was made with indigenous Indian materials. In other words, they didn't, order away from...
Is it anti-gravity?
Well, think about it. They didn't order from Japan or the U.S. or Germany, where we think of very technically advanced countries that produce these type of, pieces that could put something together. But a hovercraft, I mean, that's an astonishing term because it's not a helicopter. It hovers.
They have hovercrafts all over the world. They run on air that skims along the water. They have that in Denmark. I mean, I've taken them.
Well, the thing is the next chapter, President Kalam is in Langley Air Force Base. And near Langley Air Force Base, if I'm not mistaken, is the Monroe Institute, and I used to go there with Vincenzo for out-of-body training.
No, you've had a lot of out-of-body training.
But I thought that was, I mean, what you're saying about a craft crashing in 1978,
well,
and then
there's a whole history of UFO crashes all over from 1947 on, from Roswell on. There's, the Roswell is probably the biggest well-known government cover-up of a craft that was reverse engineered that then started the whole technological revolution that supposedly comes out of alien technologies. But I think it also comes out of just human creativity and engineering as well.
I think we have to really... exert ourselves to study this very carefully so that when we say something, we're not sort of laying on somebody something that is it's off the screen of their comprehension.
Right. I like to, it's off the screen of their comprehension, but this Buckminster Fuller quote, speaking of Harold Janner, is something that puts it all in perspective. Buckminster Fuller said, sometimes I think we're alone, and sometimes I think we're not. In either case, the thought is staggering. So
wow.
This is the truth of what people have to look at.
Wow, that's... Yeah.
Right? Isn't that great?
Right.
Are we alone in the universe?
Right.
It makes it an awesome responsibility the human race has. Or are we, which I tend to think, in a community of a universe that is alive with life everywhere you look? And they've come to visit us and help us in our evolution.
But now, that's all kind of nice and warm and fuzzy, but I think there's another side of it that we have to look at too. I mean, it really appears that there's some deliberate efforts to get rid of us.
But who's getting rid of us?
Well, I was even re-listening to Webster Tarpley talking about Pearl Harbor and how the British were operating by not giving us all the code. And it's really fascinating. And you would think, how can people up at the top be making decisions that would decimate such large amounts of the population.
But they need some of the population at least to control, or else what's the point of having, being in control if you can't control anyone?
I know.
You need somebody to control.
I know. I mean, you could always elicit some empathy in that direction, but what I'm thinking more along the lines of is, what are some of the frustrations that you've had in the UFO community? Because you said recently...
Well, I'll tell you the frustrations, because I sort of outlined it in an article I'm writing about the Exopolitics conference.
What is
what exopolitics is,
good.
According to Alfred Weber, who's also a 9/11 guy, who actually coined the term exopolitics. And he says, and I quote, it's a study of human and ET relationships in a highly populated universe with intelligent beings. It's allowing truth to reach a critical mass to shift our consciousness. We, the people of Earth, assert our right as cosmic citizens to negotiate freely with extraterrestrial intelligent civilizations. I mean, it's a little... I'll let that sink in, but my opinion about that is it's a little naive if we expect the government to end the truth embargo about ETs when there's so much that is being hidden from us.
So what you mean go out and make your own connections by yourself?
Well, that's by yourself, but also have the right, to the information that the government has denied us.
Well, I don't think anybody can stop us from communicating as long as we develop the skills that we need ourselves. I mean, maybe the Ramtha school, when Ramtha's talking about why would a master want to talk to you if all you're going to do is bitch and complain? You're not very interesting.
Right. Why would an ET want to talk to you? Well, it's about raising consciousness.
Uh-huh.
I think. So those at a higher level that aren't into the denial factor will be able to connect. It's about connecting. It's all about connecting. But let me tell you about the...
I only have 30 seconds left.
Oh, really? Because what's in the way are the gatekeepers of the truth, which is first